Hello, everyone. Oh my God, I'm so nervous. So I just want to be honest with you guys. I'm always nervous in front of humans because I work in the jungle with gibbons. So gibbons don't talk, but they communicate through vocalization. So may I know how many of you are from Southeast Asia? Whoa, okay. So Southeast Asian people, have you ever heard this kind of song in your jungle? Have you ever heard that song before? Oh yeah, what is that? Yes, it's a gibbon song. So gibbons are the only singing apes in the world, and I'm going to share you the story from the jungle and our cause to save this species. But um, I'm going to be honest, English is not my first language, so I have to rely on the script that Anna helped me corrected 99% of the grammar. So that's Anna. Thank you, Anna. In many places, especially across the global South conservation work, still follows extractive and colonial patterns. Communities are invited in late or not at all. Their knowledge is documented but not resourced. They are photographed, sometimes hired for fieldwork, but rarely offered leadership roles, funding, or decision-making power. This is participation without partnership. Communities are included, but only at the fringe. They are asked to support, but not co-create. This is tokenism, and it's still happening today. This kind of conservation work treats communities as tools. It views indigenous and rural communities as interesting case studies, not long collaborators. It builds programs on top of communities instead of with them. And then what happens? Even well-funded conservation projects collapse because they were never rooted in meaningful relationship. This is the truth story. At Gibbon Conservation Society, conservation, cultural preservation, and community care are inseparable. Because I myself is from Borneo, we are the headhunters long time ago. So the health of our forests, the well-being of our wildlife, and the leadership of indigenous and rural communities, these are not separate goals. They are one ecosystem, and like any ecosystem, they can only grow and thrive through balance and reciprocity. We've learned this by showing up, by being held accountable. We work with the Semai and Kadazan Duzon indigenous communities, not as beneficiaries, but as partners and teachers. And that has shaped everything about how we operate. Now I want to give you some context about how our work exists in Malaysia's legal and systemic landscape. Wildlife rehabilitation has existed for almost a century and it became a formal practice in the 1930s in North America. But in Peninsular Malaysia, when the wildlife conservation was introduced in 1976 and first amendment in 2010, it did not include any legal category for wildlife rehabilitation facility. When I began rehabilitating gibbons since 2013, I was doing it in a legal gray area. There are no system placed to guide or support our work. It's lonely. And in 2020, the Act was amended to include a section about wildlife rehab facilities. But even today, that section has not been fully enforced. There is still no operational legal framework that protects or regulates what we do. So we have to create everything from scratch. We have to build relationship with authorities, local governments, with indigenous partners and rural communities, all while raising wildlife that require over a decade of care where they are ready to be released back to the wild. So we've been working in a space that didn't exist yet. And we've kept going because it was and very unfortunately still urgently needed. We are already far left behind. This is what it means to lead through lived experience. Not through Facebook, not through textbook, not through theory, not from behind a desk or inside a grant report. I see some of you smiling when I say Facebook. So but from being in it, fully in the mud, in the grief, in the uncertainty. It's not glamorous, it's not fast. It's the kind of work that keeps us up at night. It's full of self-doubt, exhaustion, and moments where my team and I wonder if anyone even support the work that we do. It drains our body. It wears on our spirit. And again, it's lonely, especially when the people making decisions about conservation have never had a hold of a dying animals in their arms or navigate the tension between forest protection and community survival. We carry the weight of every individual we couldn't rescue and rehabilitate, every grant we didn't get, every time someone told us, that's not how it's done. Some pictures with our community and our dog ranger. So, do you know how similar gibbons to us human? Do you know orangutan here? Oh, sorry, yeah? Yes? How similar they are with us? Okay, if I have a merchandise here, I will pass directly to you. You're correct. We share 96% of DNA with gibbons, just 1% different with orangutan. Thank you. So, in this phylogenetic tree, you can see gibbons are apes, they are not monkeys. And I believe you all know what is chimpanzee and bonobos, what is gorillas, what is orangutan, but only some of you know what is gibbons, the smaller apes. So, because of the similarity, like I said, they talk. And what makes them similar to us human, they talk to each other through vocalization and facial expression. Sometimes when you feed them tasty food, they will say, whoo, whoo. Or they can give you a warning call when they saw snakes go near you. Ooh, ooh. So they talk. I talk Malay language, you talk English language, they talk Gibbon language. So also gibbons, they walk bipedal in long distance. They're not like other apes, like gorilla or orangutan, they're using knuckles. So gibbons walk on two legs. And scientists learn human evolution walking from gibbons. And they are socially monogamy. One male, one female, and only a couple of children. They don't live in a big group. They live in a small nucleus family, maximum only 5 or 6 of them. So, this means when we are injured mentally or emotionally, same goes to the gibbons. Sometimes it can take a long time to heal, but sometimes it doesn't heal at all. And because gibbon rehabilitation takes years, sometimes more than a decade, we rarely have quick, shiny result to show, and it's not easily quantifiable. We can't always put into colorful charts, metrics, or annual impact reports. The outcomes aren't easily measured, and because of that, we are often overlooked by funders chasing high impact returns. In effect, we are often severely underfunded. Our work is seen as too low, too uncertain, and too emotional to be worth investing in. But gibbons don't heal on a timeline, so does human. So communities don't trust overnight. Forests don't regenerate with deadlines. And still, we keep going, we keep listening, we keep pushing. Because even when no one is watching, the work still matters. It matters to our forests, it matters to our gibbons, it matters to the indigenous communities. And it changes things quietly, steadily, and from the ground up, together with community partners. I didn't come into this work with a fancy degree or a roadmap. I'm not excellent in academic. I'm really naughty. I used to escape classes. Yeah. Yeah. I came into it through heartbreak, through witnessing harm and not knowing what to do with the grief, except to try and build something that might stop it from happening again. So I want to be really clear from the start with all of you. I'm not here to present a perfect solution or some kind of success story. I'm here to offer my story and the stories of the communities we work with when it has meant to lead from the ground up, where what I've learned through grief, through mistakes, and through building something that didn't exist. Are you ready? Yeah, okay. Okay, so today I'll be sharing the story of how I came into this work, what Gibbon rehabilitation actually involved, and how community and collaboration are the foundation of everything we do. My only hope is that you will live with a deeper sense of what wildlife rehabilitation and conservation can really look like, especially when it's grounded in compassion and community care. I also hope you will go home with something that moves you, some inspiration and practical insight into what it means to care for a living system, and maybe even a spark for your own path. This is my invitation to all of you here to get creative, stay resourceful, and find possibilities even when things are uncertain or uncomfortable. That's where real change begins. And I'm not comfortable now. Before I move into the rest of my story, I want to take a few minutes to share something visual with you. So, we are lucky to be home to both of biggest and smallest gibbons in the world, which is siamang and the agile gibbons. In total, Malaysia, we have 5 species of gibbons. Overall, there's 20 species of gibbons all over Asia. And gibbons are small apes, yeah, made 20 species. And they all, for Malaysian gibbons, they all are endangered. 2 more steps to be extinct in the wild. Each of these species is unique and they are all, like I said, endangered. But one of the most endangered species of gibbons we have in China, which is Hainan gibbons. I think there are less than 30. Okay, just let me know. Okay, so when gibbons, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Like I said again, I need a moment to breathe. Speaking on stage in front of so many people make me not little, really nervous. And I'll put little here. So while you're watching, I'll take some deep breath and so I don't vomit, yeah? Oh, see, I lost, oh my God. So this is all the criteria before the gibbons can be released. So it takes 5 to 15 years for them to be rehabilitated. Now it's time for me to tell you something or someone that actually changed my life, my whole life. Before that, please note that close contact gibbons handling should be left to the experts. If you're going to take pictures and post it somewhere, I would like to request you to put this disclaimer so people will not misunderstand and start taking wildlife as pets. Yeah? He was a baby gibbon, tiny, fragile, maybe just the size of a kitten. He had soft black fur, white eyes that looked too old for his little body and long arms that would cling to me, as I was the only branch left in the world. He had been rescued from the wildlife patrol. He was kept in a small wire cage in someone's home. He was fed rice and junk food instead of the leaves, fruits, insects, and bird eggs his body naturally needs for growth and strength. I read this few times to avoid me from crying, so I'm doing my very best because this is the history 13 years ago. So bear with me. He had been taken from the forest, separated from his mother, who was most likely killed in the process and eaten, and this baby kept in the cage in someone's home, we don't know for how long. So in addition to large-scale deforestation for plantation and logging, and lack of research interest, according to the International Union Conservation for Nature, IUCN, the red list, gibbons, Hylobathidae family is under threat, largely due to the wildlife pet trade, where infants are taken from the wild after their mothers and family members are killed. Gibbons are socially monogamy primates that live in a close-knit family unit. Normally, when poachers target a baby, every adult member, same like human, when you are being threatened, your father or mother and siblings will try their very best to protect you. So does gibbons. So the family member will try to protect the mother and infant, often leading to the death of the entire group. Because of the fall, the gibbons died together with the mother. So when that happens, poachers simply move on to the next group, because everybody's died, killing up to 20 individuals in the process just to capture a single surviving baby to be sold as pets at humans' home. So when I first met one of those babies, I had no idea what I was doing, even though I was working as a wildlife ranger with the wildlife department. My job was to enforce laws and track wildlife movement, not to raise and orphan primates, especially an apes, which is like really close to human baby. I had no training in gibbon rehabilitation, but until one day during my routine rounds at the rescue center, I saw a small infant in a cage, like a really small cage, 3 times 2 feet, surrounded by animals that didn't belong together. He shared a space with pythons, porcupines, turtles, each of them cramped into plastic boxes or wire cages, barely big enough for them to turn around. So these are not his species. They don't live together in the wild. A python is a natural predator of small mammals like him. He was a baby alone, orphan, grieving, and now trapped in a place where he could smell, hear, and see his predators every single day. He was constantly alert, constantly afraid. He was just a baby, few months. Every movement, every rustle, every passing shadows kept him on edge. There was no safety. You see, anytime the snakes can just slip into the holes of the cage. And there were no forest melody. He sat in that tiny, small cage, normally cat cage, hugging his own body to self-soothe, flinching every time someone passed by. And still, every single time he would stretch out his arm through the bars, screeching, holding out his hand. He was looking for connection from another primate, for anyone to take his hand. One day, I had some extra time after work, so I took his hand. I opened his cage and brought him outside to a small tree near the landscape garden. I hung fruits and vegetables in the branches, and those sad eyes lift up. He climbed, he played, he tapped my hand and tugged my shirt, inviting me to climb with him, so I did. That short time of play became the part of my day that I look forward to the most. I rushed to finish my duties early so I could be with him. But every time I had to put him back in that tiny cage, he would screech and pull at my shirt, begging me not to leave. That was the moment something in me softened. So every day, going to work, I have 2 feelings at once, joy and dread. Joy when I was with him, dread when I thought about what would have happened if I left. I started asking myself quiet question at night. What can I do to make his playtime better? Is he cold at night? Is he thirsty? Is he hungry? And it didn't take long before he would also take over my heart. So I named him Ellek. This is us. This was us. He started looking to me the way a baby looks to their mother, for comfort, for guidance, for safety, with the kind of trust and only a very young animal can give. And I did my very best to become the caregiver he needed to replace the mother figure. I wrote a proposal to bring him home with me, and miraculously it was approved, and Ellek became part of my everyday life. I brought it home. He had free reign of my 2-story terrace house. He opened the fridge and cupboard by himself. He played, he climbed, he ate whatever he wanted from the fridge, from the table. I gave him the best I could, fresh fruits, a warm home, 1,000 times bigger than the cage he came from. And I ended up treating him like a pet. But something wasn't then. I know something wasn't right because he started throwing tantrums. He had frequent diarrhea. His once bright eyes looked angry, stressed. And I realized that love and connection weren't enough. I didn't know what I was doing, and he was the one that paying the price. So up until then, I was someone who worked for fun, my hobbies, like upgrading my superbike, going convoy with my friends to Hatyai, just go for a ride in one morning just to eat in the southern part of Peninsular Malaysia. But after Ellek, I found myself staying up late, reading studies, reaching out to experts overseas, doing everything I could learn how to take care of him. And eventually, I found a Gibbon rehabilitation project in Thailand. So I took leave and went. For the first time, I saw what proper Gibbon rehabilitation looked like: personalized psychological and mental care, gradual socialization, long-term preparation for release. I also realized something else. Malaysia didn't have a single project like this, no dedicated rehabilitation facility, no Gibbon specialist, no roadmap. So I came home determined to change that. I envisioned running a sanctuary where gibbons could sing in the morning, where babies like Ellek could grow strong enough and have a family of their own, and return to the wild. Because no matter how much I love Ellek, I didn't want to keep him anymore. I want him to be free. I want him to have what I could never give him in my house: a forest, a lifelong partner, and offsprings, a home, and my fridge and living room could never compare to the 3 kilometers of jungle, to the wild food he loves and needs for energy and nutrition, to the life he was meant to live. But when I returned home, something was wrong. The friend who had been caring for Ellek said something's not right while I was away, and he wasn't eating. So the moment I reached home, I took him back with a really, proud knowledge that I have and experience. I brought him back, but he don't want to eat, and he have really less movement. So I try to recall what I learned, everything, but he still not recover. And I fed him all the favorite food that he liked, held him and watched him carefully, but then his body kept deteriorating. And one night, as usual, he will sleep beside me, but this time it's really weak. And then that night, he suddenly have an energy climbing to my chest. I thought, wow, he's recovering, everything works. But I remember when he climbed, his face, look at me. I remember one deep breath from him, and then he vomit water. And then he don't have any more movement. So I rub his back gently. I try to wake him up. I went to Thailand. I learned for you. I want to help you. And then, what am I gonna do anything? No, I'm. After the vomit, his small body went limp and he died on my chest. His body slowly turns cold. His death broke something open in me. This is Ellek. I blame myself, I blame my friends, I blame the whole system. I couldn't listen to the word gibbon for months without crying. I had failed him. I had failed Ellek. By the way, this is Ellek's face. We dedicated this t-shirt design for him in memory of Ellek. Then one day, a call from a friend at the department. I received a call from a friend. They were trying to release another gibbon. But that gibbon kept on coming back to the village looking for humans. They had tried everything, tying him loosely in a sack and sneaking away. And I know from what I learned that this was already a wrong method. They asked for me to help. And of course, I said no. I said myself, at least he survived. In my hand, he will die. I keep on blaming myself because of Ellek's death. And I remember my friend said, at least can you come and advise me what is the proper diet and everything and how to do better. So I ended up going with a friend. It was a 3-hour drive in one of the forest reserve in Peninsular Malaysia, in Pahang. There's 2 of us in the car. And then coming back, there's 2 humans and 1 ape in the car. So I named him Daru. When I saw this matted fur rocking back and forth, and you can see all the rubbish inside the enclosure, rotten fruits, plastic ice cream, how can I say no? And I felt betrayal. I feel angry. How could anyone look at this animal and think it's okay? So on the way home, I kept thinking, what if we had a proper system in Malaysia? What if there was somewhere in Malaysia where gibbons could heal physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, and eventually return to the wild properly and live and survive? Ellek didn't survive, but his story did. And that story became the beginning of something much bigger. So, I promised myself I didn't want any gibbon to feel that kind of helplessness, and I didn't want any other gibbon to die because they weren't ready. We weren't ready to take care for them properly. And I slowly began to envision something I wasn't sure I could pull off. I needed to build something that didn't yet exist in Malaysia, a dedicated rehabilitation center run from the ground up with a special focus on gibbons. And I want people to know, don't you ever dare to mistreat our gibbons because there's an organization that's going to protect them. There's an organization, there will be people that are going to stand for them. That is why we created Gibbon Conservation Society. That grief of losing Ellek became a turning point in my life. It showed me that love and rage can coexist. They can become tools if we're willing to sit them long enough to really understand what they are asking of us. Ellek didn't survive, and again, his story did, and in many ways, so did he. Through every gibbons we've cared for since. So at first, I had nothing. No funds, no government support, no roadmap. But I had one. I had a vision. A science-based, trauma-informed, community-based rehabilitation center, a sanctuary where gibbons could heal physically, mentally, and emotionally, and eventually return to the wild. I remember every night, I start envision this thing in my head. I want to wake up with the gibbon call of hope from the gibbons that we're going to rescue. And of course, I think it's cool. Many legends start from small, from zero, you know. So that's how I started. I sold almost everything I own, especially my favorite super bike. I used the money to build the first rehab center by hand with the help of a few friends. And we named it Malaya Gibbon Rehabilitation Project. And I know it's not the creative name, but it works. So, to save costs, because no funding, I had to learn everything. I learned how to use power tools, how to weld, how to mix cement, and also I designed a portable enclosure using second-hand materials and construct and build them myself. But sometimes things didn't go as planned. As you see, this is the enclosure, the pictures at the project site. So this is all to save costs, and I remember my first enclosures weren't strong enough. A gibbon escaped and bit someone passing by, whilst me, I've been bitten many times, and I almost lost vision in one of my eye. We have stitches because we don't have vets. I cannot afford to even hire a vet. So me, myself, with few friends try to gain their trust in order for us to help them. So our enrichment toys tangle our enrichment toys tangles a gibbons one. Every time I fix one thing, another thing broke. The furniture inside the enclosure kept falling. I kept on failing over and over again. I don't know how to build because I just know how to ride a bike. Taking care of living beings, especially wild animals, is expensive. I didn't know how to write a grant proposal. I felt awkward asking for donation. Slowly, my savings depleted. Like I said, I sold everything: my house, my phone, my super bike, everything I had, but only one left that I didn't sell: my dignity. So, fresh fruit were costly, so were metal, wood, and every single materials needed to build big, safe and sturdy enclosures. And I still remember the day where I hit the lowest point. I had less than 100 ringgit in my pocket. My bank account was empty, and that day I need to choose whether to buy my rice to eat or to buy food for the gibbons. So this is me with, with anxiety attack, I have to lift my legs because that's how I learned so the oxygen goes to my brain again. And guys, in my mid-20s, like some of you, I officially become young, stupid, and broke. My friends were getting married, starting families, going on holidays. Meanwhile, I live alone in a rubber plantation inside a one-room house with a detached bathroom that had abandoned for over years, and I had no neighbors. My mom was so angry and she called me stubborn. She asked me to come back, but I don't want. I had no neighbors. I was so isolated that someone reported me for practicing black magic in that rubber plantation. Yeah. So, because they saw me living alone in a forest, in a rubber plantation with exotic wild animals. I remember the police came and because I was in my mid-20s, the police said, "Where's your parents?" I said, "In Borneo." "What are you doing here?" I said, "Taking care of these animals." And they are searching in my house looking for like candles or whatever witch used to have. Okay. So when I felt like giving up, like I had nothing left to offer, Bella started to sing soft. She was absolutely off key, just like me when I was karaokeing. But her singing was so full of life. This was Bella. She had 2 holes on her head and 5 stitches on her arm. She got the injuries during the fall with the mother. Luckily, she survived. But there she was. While I was thinking about myself, about my friends, peer pressure when you were young. Bella suddenly sang her first song. And do you know why Bella first song was so important? Because it's one of the 7 release criteria we look for, and it tells us that gibbons is emotionally regulating and socially motivated. It's how they call their mate, mark their territory, and connect with others in the forest. So when Bella sang, it was a sign of recovery, one possibility, one criteria tick, of wildness still alive inside her, despite everything she had been through. I didn't mean to do a trauma dumping here, just sharing, okay? And in that moment, I remembered why I started this in the first place. I forgot about being young, stupid, and broke. I got up and I went to her. We celebrated one of her many milestones together. Look at Bella now. So that's what keep us going, keep me going, not a recognition. So their progress, their survival is my fuel. And this kind of motivation spreads fast, it's contagious. Everyone on our team feels it. We are not in this for the glamour. We're in this because we believe in the possibility of healing and because we've seen it happen. So even when everything and everyone says it's impossible. Just to let you know, in Malaysia, the last population survey for gibbons been made in 1980s, which was 40 years ago. That's not much interest. Normally, we just focus on 5 big mammals: tiger, elephant, gaur, tapir, and sun bear, on orangutan. So that is the best we've got, and it's already 4 decades and out of date. So all 3 species in Peninsular Malaysia are listed as endangered. And actually, when it comes to understanding our own gibbon population today, we're relying on estimation data that we borrowed from Thailand and Indonesia. We don't have our own data for wild gibbons. That should tell you something, not about wildlife, but also about our priorities here. And until now, there's been no large-scale science-based population study and no real national strategy to protect them. It's frustrating, but it's also why this work community-led boots on the ground research informed is so important, because if we wait for the perfect condition or official approval to get started, we'll lose them before we even understand what we had. So what inspires me to continue this work? It's not just my love for animals, but it was the belief that we could rebuild the relationship between humans and wildlife, one rescue at a time. This was me, and with Ellek, I remember when I go into the jungle, try to get him used to the jungle, he will keep on being on my shoulder and hugging my head. So I wanted them, these young gibbons that been kidnapped from the forest, to hug their mothers instead. That's why we created that logo. Rehabilitating gibbons is not like rescuing a cat or a dog. It takes 5 to 15 years, sometimes even longer than that, and sometimes some of them cannot even heal. So first we rescue. Sometimes it's a confiscation, sometimes it's a surrender, sometimes it's a baby pulled from a cage in someone's backyard. However they arrive, we always begin with the same way, with healing. That means physical care, treating wounds, stabilizing their health, but also emotional recovery. And many of the gibbons we receive are traumatized, isolated, malnourished, and they've never learned how to be gibbons. They even thought they are humans. They have human imprintings. So we use enrichment furniture and toys to help them remember or encourage their natural behaviors, climbing, swinging, foraging, singing, and we help them socialize and bond them with other gibbons and form family groups which are critical for their long-term well-being and survival. At our center, every day begins with basic, preparing fresh fruits, veggies, making therapeutic food for the gibbons. But working with animals, I realized routine will be the same, but there will never 2 days the same at the center. So we do behavioral observation, monitor stress indicator, run health assessment, and we log everything. And when they're strong enough, we begin pre-release training, forest exposure, social stability, strict health check. We follow a detailed checklist to make sure they are truly ready, not just to survive but thrive in the wild. So as soon as they start showing independence, we begin the gentle process of detachment. We give them more space and trust the forest to take over what we can't provide. And we always keep in our mind to love is to let go. Because wildlife rehabilitation is not about keeping them dependent on us. It's about preparing them to enjoy life in the wild without us. And even after release, our work doesn't stop. We continue monitoring for up to 20 months. We track their movement, check their feeding and social pattern, watch how they navigate in the new forest, and yes, even their social life. We are independently audited every year. Like I told you, we don't have any reference in Malaysia, so we voluntarily invited audit to come to hold ourselves to international gold standard and make sure our entire rehabilitation protocol follows the IUCN best practice guidelines for rehabilitation and translocation of gibbons, and that's why we call the auditor came. Because gibbon rehabilitation is not an experiment, it requires structure, it's not easy, it's accountability and commitment to the science just as much as it requires care and compassion. But even the best rehabilitation effort can fail in the environment that isn't safe. That's why community outreach and education are just important as rehabilitation. We work with local and indigenous communities, schools, and authorities to shift public understanding because the old mindset is still so common. I believe some of us that live in Southeast Asia, some of our family or grandparents still have wildlife as pets. And they can be pet in our mentality. That once they grow up, you can just set them free and they'll figure it out because they are wild. They have wild instinct. So that instincts are not for us that are enough. That compassion for wildlife means feeding them or getting close for a selfie. By this, you see macaque by the side of the road and you start want to feed them because you love them. But actually it's wrong. And it's not care. That's harm wrapped in a good intention. So why rehabilitation is important? Wildlife raised in captivity lose survival skills. They don't magically learn how to find food, avoid predators, or bond with their species in the wild. That knowledge has to be rebuilt carefully over time. This is Daru. He just wants to hurt himself. He don't have motivation to live. And that's Ut. She lived long enough with honor, more than 10 years. So every time she saw other gibbons, she wants to kill them. Or every time she saw other humans, she will start rub her vaginal on the wall. So this is them at their owner's house. So wildlife raised in captivity lose survival skills. They don't magically learn how to find food, avoid predators, or bond with their species in the wild. That knowledge has to be rebuilt carefully over time. And the idea that they are better off in the jungle without rehabilitation, that's a death sentence for these animals. So that's our responsibility, not just for care for individuals, but to change the culture that made their suffering possible, to make sure no more babies are taken, that no more wildlife, not just gibbons, are sold, chained, kept in human homes, or hidden in cages for content. It's long, slow work, and it's never finished. But every call, every swing, every song make it so worth it. These are some of the process I want to share with you why it takes so long to rehabilitate one individual and to release them back to the wild and survive and thrive. It takes 5 to 15 years. These are some of the data for our behavioral research. We don't see and estimate and assume. We do scientific observation. Starting Gibbon Conservation Society meant not doing things outside the norm. We didn't have a steady donors or big grants. And to be honest, until now, we still don't. So, if you search Gibbon Conservation Society on the internet, you'll find hundreds of media features, stories from TV stations, newspapers, podcasts, documentaries. But behind every spotlight, there are scars and fresh wounds that the public wouldn't see. Yeah. So, we receive death threats, rape threats, harassment from wildlife traders who saw us as a threat to their profits. We've upset powerful people, especially when we started pushing for policy change, because they thought we were trying to make them look bad, but we were only asking them to do better and we want to help. I remember this during the pandemic in 2020. We did a peace protest in front of the rescue center because we have exhausted all the options, try to have meetings, go meeting the minister, talking to the director general and everything, but everything failed. So this is our last call during the pandemic. With our mask on, we did a protest. And no money. Yeah. So we need to do it really slowly because there's many wildlife inside. So this is in the middle of pandemic. We protested in front of the government rescue center, not for attention, but because no one would listen otherwise. We were desperate, we needed laws to change, we needed support. And you can count, there's only 6 or 7 of us that are able to go through the police and do the protest because it's locked down. Everyone were asked to stay at home. And some of the hardest pain didn't come from strangers, it came from people I trusted. Maybe people beside you also. Because people I look up to as mentors, I thought they believe in me, that they were here to guide and support our work, but over time, I realized some of them were only around to take what they could get, and when they didn't get what they wanted, they tried to thread it tear it all down. So be careful growing up. That kind of betrayal stays with you. I came into this work thinking the hardest part would be rehabilitating the gibbons. The trauma, the behavioral recovery, the heartbreak of losing them. But then I quickly learned it's the people who break your heart. Not just because you're lovers, you know. So I just wanted to rehabilitate gibbons and send them back to the wild. I wasn't prepared for how much of the fight would be about navigating egos, power, and politics. And I definitely wasn't prepared for what it meant to do all this while being a woman in leadership and in conservation. I've been told more than once by someone that also worked in conservation, you know, he said, go home and make babies. Because you said, why you waste time to take care of gibbon babies? Go make your own babies. But it didn't stop. I wouldn't. And they told me to stop, and I replied to them, try and make me stop. So we got creative. See? Oh, why you play this? Yeah, some of the creative video that yeah. So we co-designed community-based eco-edutourism program. We organized school visit, workshop, and field experience to reach more people, to talk about rehabilitation, to talk about gibbons. And all this short-form video content to call out unethical media coverage on Malaysian wildlife and advocacy. And we designed and sold our own merchandise, because if we couldn't rely on big donors, we must find our own ways to keep going. So one of the hardest lessons I learned from the pandemic is this. I remember that time that wildlife non-profit must learn to be self-sustaining. Because when crisis hits, donations slow down and wildlife is the first to be forgotten. But we couldn't afford to take a break. Our gibbons needed us, so did the indigenous and rural communities who had long been left out of mainstream conservation effort. So we learned how to be sustainable. Through all this, we never lost sight of our core values. We built long-term partnership with the experts in IUCN Small Apes Specialist Group, with researchers and organizations across the region and internationally. But one thing, we never compromised, not on our ethics, not on our mission, and not on how we treat the people or animals we work with. We refused to cut corners, even when it meant slower progress. We turned down funding that came with strings attached. We said no to partnership that didn't align with our values, even when we were struggling to stay afloat. We also refused offers of land and facilities that came with conditions like allowing tourists to touch gibbons, take selfies, or watch them perform under the excuse of raising awareness. It's a big no for us. That's not education, that's exploitation. And no amount of money or space is worth compromising a gibbon's dignity. Because partnership only works when your core values stay intact, and sometimes that means doing the uncomfortable thing, the risky thing, the hard thing, even when you are scared, even when you are alone. And if you listen carefully, it gives everything back. At Gibbon Conservation Society, we don't believe in rescuing wildlife while ignoring communities. We train and work with indigenous women from Semai and Kadazan Dusun communities. Some are now rangers, some lead our eco-edutourism program, some have becoming indigenous right activists, one of our, like Shidot, one of our rangers. So Shidot spoke at the Asian Summit and National Climate Governance Summit 2000 this year to talk about indigenous land right and involvement in environmental and wildlife conservation.
Hari ini saya ingin mengetengahkan isu hak dan perjuangan wanita orang asli. Saya juga ingin berkongsi tentang halangan yang kami hadapi, contohnya keganasan berasaskan gender yang menghalang kami dari menyertai dan memimpin aktiviti konservasi.
So Chidot didn't even finish her high school. She married Chidot and other rangers. They get married as young as 13 years old, 15 years old, and 17 years old, because they don't have much opportunity given to them. So they ends up just, when they grow up, the parents married them. So yeah, but now Chidot is in front. That's why we train and work alongside our indigenous women and lead our eco-tourism program. And even though some of them aren't fluent in reading or writing, but that has never defined their intelligence, their leadership, or their capacity to protect life. They hold ecological knowledge and live experience that no textbook can replicate. They are not behind us or beneath us. They are right at the heart of our work. So our rangers also performed Sewang, a cultural dance of the indigenous Semai community, and spoke at Women's March Malaysia 2025. And we call them Semangat Kerdor Semai, which means the rising spirit of Semai women and girls. This is at the Women's March. So they're not here at the symposium this week because they just finished a short film with Malaysia Kini, a short documentary with Reuters, and now preparing for World Indigenous Peoples Day celebration. That's the level they are operating at now. They are a living proof that wildlife conservation can also be a form of cultural survival and economic justice. So, these are some of the pictures during interview. Because we pushed for it, the government amended the Wildlife Conservation Act to finally include a section on wildlife rehabilitation. So I personally took this upon my shoulder to make sure we set the highest possible standard for gibbon rehabilitation in Malaysia, not just for our center, but for the entire future of this field. Because when new wildlife rehabilitation centers open, and they shouldn't have a single excuse to treat animals arbitrarily or say we didn't know any better. I want our work to be the local reference point, a benchmark, a living example of what possible when compassion meets science and ethics. So that the next generation of conservationists doesn't have to learn the hard way. So they don't have to start from zero like I did. So they don't need to be young, stupid, and broke. There should be no more stories like Ellek. When they begin, I want everything to be ready for them. The research, the infrastructure models, the protocols, the community engagement tools, all they should need to focus on is doing on the ground work, rehabilitating wildlife and sending them back home. These are all our rangers. Melda is the one that actually inject for 1 hour gibbons for health check. Yeah. So, okay, now raise your hand if you're currently in a leadership position. May I know? Wow, oh, okay. Okay, young leaders, okay? Now raise your hand if you think you are a good leader. Wow, okay, that's confidence there. Really good. So I'm in a leadership position too, but whether I'm good leader, I still ask myself that all the time. Sometimes I even ask my partner as they are about to fall asleep, am I doing okay? And it still haunts me. And then I remember they mumble something supportive and it's like, no, but really be honest. and then they really fully awake again, and that is love. What I do know is every time I'm called to lead, I commit to doing my very best, even to talk to in front of you leaders. Like I said, my English is not really good, so I have to do this. I know it's not really smooth, but I need to send the message. Yeah, yeah. I look at the problem from every angle. I do my very best to lead with care, not control. I share my knowledge openly because leadership is not about holding power. Leadership is about creating more leaders. So, then I play the video. This is Melda, and you can see me down there asking what to do and teach her from far. Not really far. To convince one of the gibbon to go close and then can jab.
Yes. Jaga ah. Hati-hati ah.
So, and that's starting to show. Today, we have project leads and assistant leads managing both of our rehabilitation project sites in Peninsular Malaysia, Malaya Grab, and also in Borneo, in Sabah, which is Borneo Grab. I remember 12 years ago, I wouldn't have dreamed of leaving our gibbons under someone else's care. I was too afraid something would go wrong. But now, with well-established protocols, SOP, and strong team leadership on the ground, I've learned to trust and I've learned to let go. So far, we've cared for 48 gibbons, including 6 who were part of the legal dispute with the Wallet Department. In December 2020, the Malaysian authorities forcibly removed 6 individuals from Malaya Grab, even though their rehabilitation was still in progress and court proceedings were ongoing. The gibbons, Daru, Dali, Bella, Betsy, Lola, and Chantik were taken under Court of Appeal order that overruled the previous High Court decision in my favor. It's like a loss of 6 gibbons, even Bella, the small ones that I've taken care of before. I remember I cannot really wake up from my bed for almost 2 months. But for the gibbons that still with us are doing incredibly well. Right now, 3 family groups made up to 9 individuals, which is 6 adults and 3 infants, are in the final stages of rehabilitation. 2 of those families are tentatively scheduled for release by the end of this year, or latest by March 2026. And each of them has taught us something about their species, about trauma and healing, and about the strength that comes with patience and care. As you can see, Lily, one of our indigenous ranger, she's learning how to take the heartbeat. We've also started Malaysia's first all-female indigenous ranger team. There are not many of us. Most of these women never had a chance to attend or graduated even high school. Some were married off as early as 13 or 15, never given the opportunity to explore what it means to be a teenager, let alone imagine a future for themselves. Many are survivors of gender-based violence. I remember one of them who had to run away from home just to attend our training so her husband would not find out. One of our indigenous partners was physically assaulted by her husband, punched in the face, and lost her front tooth. After returning from a cultural performance and at an event where he had just received an award together in Kuala Lumpur. But she showed up with pride, representing her community on stage, only to be met with violence afterward for stepping into space she was never meant to be in. We recognize their potential not as assistants or sidekicks, but as leaders. We train them in citizen science and wildlife conservation skills through knowledge sharing, hands-on practice, and trust building. They're showing their children what it looks like to be strong, curious, committed, and proud. And they've started mentoring other women And they're stepping into spaces they were never told belong to them and claiming them fully. They are rewriting what's possible, not just for themselves, but for generations to come. Alongside that, we're also helping shift the national conversation. More Malaysians now understand that primates are not pets, they are not entertainment, they are not accessories, they are wild beings with their own relationship, needs, and social system. They belong in the forest, not in the living room, not on chain and not in a cute viral video. Our work has received international recognition, but we remain grounded in the field because the goal was never fame or growth for the sake of growth. The goal was always been to become absolutely redundant. And I want both our rehabilitation project in Malaya and Borneo to be closed one day. Because I want that closure to mean something powerful, that no more gibbons being poached, no more infants being sold, and no more trauma to undo. That the forests are safe and our wildlife is respected at their own home. And for those gibbons who can't be released due to permanent disabilities, due to injuries or severe trauma, we'll provide them a lifelong sanctuary that will continue to be led by the indigenous women who have committed themselves to our journey. Women who show up every day with so much skill, dedication, and love. And this is what collective healing can do. And there's another thing that I want to be honest with you. None of this comes without a cost. I know it's easy to look at someone on stage.
Yes, sir. Very cute. 12, sudah baru kah?
So I know it's easy for someone to look at someone on stage and think they've got it all together, that they are strong, resilient, and someone immune to the weight of it all. But I am not. I never have been. Everything I've shared today, the grief, the constant struggle for funding, the betrayal, the violence, the weight of leading something from nothing, it doesn't just stay in my memory, it lives in my body. It shows up in ways that I can't control sometimes. Most of the time. And everything I've shared today, the grief, the constant struggling. There were stretches of time where I couldn't sleep. My chest would tighten, I'd lose my appetite, and even basic decisions felt like climbing a mountain. I forgot things, I pushed people away. I've had panic attacks in the middle of meetings. I've cried in the car before walking into donor events, wiped my face, and acted like everything was fine. I've had moments where I stared at my iPad for hours, trying to write a quick email reply, but I'm unable to move. And I spent years of telling myself that what I was feeling wasn't important, that I didn't have time to fall apart, that our gibbons needed me, that our team needed me, that if I just work harder, things would get better. I must be strong. But again, my body remembered, and that pressure built up, and it nearly broke me. I've hit burnout more than once, and each time it got harder to recover. There were moments I truly felt like I couldn't do it anymore. I'd given everything I had, and there was nothing left. But I also knew this. If I collapse, everything I built all the struggle, all the efforts could collapse too. Not because I'm special, but because I hadn't yet created a system that could hold the work without me. I had to do something different, not just for our gibbons or our organization, but for myself too. So I started letting people in. I got help. I started therapy. I began practicing breath work. I do sound healing, I take supplements, ashwagandha really helps, and magnesiums. I try to sleep by 11 o'clock in the evening, and I'm learning to recognize my limits not as failure but as signals. My partner is a big fan of mindfulness and meditation, which is very consistent, because I have a habit of waking up at 6 o'clock and immediately reaching out for my phone to work, doom scroll, to numb my pain or reply emails while eating. So now, every time I try to spiral into burnout, they pry the phone out of my hand and remind me that I am a person first, before a primatologist. As you can see, these are the threads that going into my PMs and DMs. And the wildlife trader even used the wildlife department logo to sell exotic wildlife illegally. And they even spread my face and my friend's face in their secret group so they can, these people can find us. And there's one day I found a GPS tracker under my truck. And then there's another day, someone sending a photo of me eating in a restaurant. And she said, I know this is you. So this is also some of the things happen when we question so much. The world is a cruel and unjust place. There is no harmony. Sometimes I feel like that. So I've started drawing a line between who I am and my role as the founder of Gibbon Conservation Society, between BAM, the person, and BAM, the primatologist. And I've made it a priority to make sure our team can function without me, that leadership is shared, that no one, especially not me, carries everything alone. Because that's what sustainable leadership actually looks like. I'm still learning and I'm still unlearning too, that I've come to believe that how we care for ourselves is so connected to how we care for others. I can't show up for the forest, for the gibbons, for the community, if I am constantly disappearing from myself. So now I'm building a version of leadership that can also do like this. We're able to shut down one of the famous wildlife traders in Malaysia that have been selling wildlife for years, and even looking for agents or graduate students to sell wildlife. And even have promotions on their websites. And also, the new wildlife amendment that can now allow us to operate a wildlife rehabilitation facility. This was Axel. This was a video of our rangers building enclosure for the gibbons. Yeah. And these are some of them also being
Pengalaman
creative.
saya yang paling seram. Saya
Also on
lari.
TikTok. Oh. So these are some of the pictures at the jungle school. And some of awards that we receive. So here's what I'll leave you with. Leadership doesn't mean having all the answers. No, you don't. It means listening deeply and being willing to start small. Don't wait for perfection. Grief can be a powerful fuel. So can anger, so can love. Effective collaboration means holding onto your values even when the pressure to compromise is loud. Look at problems as opportunities to be creative, not perfect. And finally, staying soft is not a weakness, it's a strategy, it's how we survive, how we lead and how we build something that actually lasts. And yesterday, I'm celebrating my 39 years of living. Thank you. Celebrating every small win that once felt impossible. And I'm not saying the challenges are over and not even close, but I've stopped seeing them as things to avoid. The challenges ahead will be wild, unpredictable, and sometimes heartbreaking, but still totally worth it. And because we've made it this far and we're still swinging. Thank you.
Thank you so very much.